I never planned to know anything about the man in 2B. He lived directly below me. An invisible neighbor whose footsteps I sometimes heard. Soft thuds like echoes of a life I didn't understand. I used to wonder what kind of person lived like that. So quiet. So still. He never had visitors. His blinds were always drawn. His mail sat in the box too long. When I moved to Northside, I was looking for silence. Not peace, just silence. I had just left a 6-year relationship. A job that drained me. And a city that never let me breathe. My apartment in 3B was cheap, small, and honest. I liked that. The walls were thin enough to remind me I wasn't alone. But not thin enough to demand conversation. The first time I heard him was on a Tuesday. I dropped a fork at 2 a.m. And from below, a soft, ow. I froze. I didn't know whether to laugh or apologize through the floor. But then there was silence again. So I laughed quietly. And went back to eating cold pasta in the dark. Over the next few weeks I noticed things. He vacuumed every Saturday at 4 p.m. sharp. He always turned on classical music, not loud. Just enough for the strings to hum up through my floorboards. Sometimes I'd lie on my rug just to feel the vibration of it. It reminded me of my grandmother's house. Of warmth without touch. He also had this cough. Dry, short, sharp. It came in waves, mostly at night. I started to worry. Then hated myself for caring. One night during a storm the power went out. It was mid-December and the building creaked like a tired old man. I lit a candle, wrapped myself in a blanket, and sat by the window like some cliché. Then I heard something from downstairs. A thud. Then another. Then nothing. I hesitated. Then grabbed my phone flashlight and walked down the stairs barefoot. I told myself I was just checking for damage. But really I was looking for him. I knocked on 2B. No answer. Knocked again. I heard a shuffle. Then finally the door creaked open. He stood there. Older than I'd imagined, maybe mid-50s. Tired eyes. A gray hoodie. One slipper. He looked surprised. So did I. I said, "You okay?" He nodded slowly. Then whispered, "Do you have a flashlight?" His had died. That was how we met. I handed him mine and said, "Return it tomorrow. Or don't." He smiled, kind of. The next morning there was a knock on my door. He returned the flashlight. And a Tupperware of soup. "Homemade," he said. Then left before I could ask his name. Over the next few weeks, we became a strange sort of almost friend. We didn't exchange numbers. We never made plans. But every now and then there'd be things. A bag of cookies on my doormat. A note that said, "Try this tea." A post-it left on his door. "Your radio's still on." We spoke through gestures. Through objects. Through silence. His name, I eventually learned, was Thomas. He had lived in the building for 11 years. Used to be a high school literature teacher. Loved Rachmaninoff. Feared elevators. He never told me why he lived alone. I never asked. One day I heard him fall. A real fall, hard, heavy, and wrong. I rushed downstairs, heart pounding. The door was unlocked. He was on the floor, gripping his ankle, pale and shaking. I helped him up. Stayed with him. Made tea in his dusty kitchen. That's when I saw the photo on his fridge. A young woman, maybe in her 20s. Wearing a graduation cap. Smiling like summer. He caught me looking. Said, "Hi, daughter. Gone 6 years now." That's all he said. And that's all I needed to know. From then on things changed. We didn't talk more. But we understood each other better. Loss has a frequency. It vibrates under the skin. People who've lived through it recognize the hum. One evening I was crying in my kitchen. Quietly, shamefully. A letter from my ex had come. Full of closure I didn't ask for. A knock. It was Thomas. He didn't say anything. Just handed me a piece of paper. Read. "Sometimes silence is how we survive." Then he nodded and left. I never told him that was exactly what I needed. Spring came. His cough got worse. I started checking on him more often. He started calling me kid. Sometimes we sat in silence drinking tea, listening to old symphonies that felt like lullabies. Then one morning, I didn't hear the vacuum. No radio. No movement. I waited. Then knocked. No answer. I called the landlord. They found him in bed, peaceful. So, gone. His funeral was small. Quiet. 3 people including me. I left the same Tupperware he gave me, filled with soup, and a note that said, "Thanks for the light." Back home I sat on my floor, turned on the radio, and let the music rise from the apartment below. The strings hummed through the walls like he never left. My name is Leila, and this is the story of the man below me who taught me that silence doesn't mean empty. It can also mean healing.